Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to check out the final of the Roar Strikers figures, and this one, as you can quite clearly see, is the Ankylosaurus. I'm very intrigued to get this one out of the box and see if there's any difference when it comes to the sculpt on this one when it comes to previous Ankylosaurus releases, but I will say color-wise, it definitely looks to be one of the most appealing that we've had as a whole. I really do like the coloration of the Ankylosaurus. Again, from what I can tell here, just looking up here at the upper side of the dinosaur, I haven't really attempted to inspect the side or anything out because I figured, why would I do that? I'll just do that once I get the review going, and we're going to do that now. Once we finish taking a look at the packaging, and you can see as far as the box art here on the back goes, we actually get a good look at the side of the Ankylosaurus. It still looks very nice. And then we also have an image down here, well, 3 images technically, of the other Roar Strikers that are out currently, all of which we have reviewed already. So let's pop this out of the box and check it out. So here is our brand new Roar Strikers Ankylosaurus. Got to move the camera a little bit down to get a better look at it. One thing that is interesting is the tail kind of stays in like an attack position, whereas most of the Mattel Ankylosaurus, the tail would usually stay like a neutral spot. This one is almost always over here until you move it and activate the action feature. But the sculpt, in my opinion, really does look like it's the same sculpt that we've had prior. Trying to get that foot in a good spot, and I completely moved it. But to take a look at it here, we've got the previous Ankylosaurus from Mattel there with the bumpy Ankylosaurus, and I'm really not picking up on any differences, honestly, except for the fact that the tail again stays off to the side. On the newer version, I don't notice anything specifically that is like a dead giveaway as far as a different sculpt. I think the only way to really tell would maybe be to just jump straight to a closer look, so actually let's just go ahead and do that right now. So once we bring both Ankylosaurus up, you can definitely see again a very, very strong similarity when it comes to the head sculpt. I really can't pick out anything that is different on the newer one compared to the previous Ankylosaurus release. Looking up here at the top of the head, all of that detail definitely looks to be the same. If we take a look here at the back, really does look exactly the same, of course, except for we have an action feature button here in the middle of the back, whereas now we have the scan code up here. We don't really have anything else different when it comes to that. The club tail looks the same, so I'm going to go ahead and say that the figure as a whole definitely looks like it is the same Ankylosaurus that we've had prior. I really can't pick out any differences on the sculpt, so that means we don't need to go over the sculpt of the figure, and basically we need to just take a look at anything that's new with that figure, and that would be the paint job right now. And you can see as far as the paint scheme goes, we have a really nice reddish tone of color for the face. And unfortunately, we don't have any color for the beak itself. Like, that's definitely a downside. I really would have liked to have seen some color on the beak. Like, for instance, on Bumpy, who we just had up here, we had a nice gray coloration for the beak with a little bit of a gloss coat for it, too. This one, we have nothing color-wise for the beak, so that straight away is a bit of a downside. You can see some speckling, like some dark black or dark brown speckling through the figure, but no specific coloration for the beak. We have a nicely painted eye, though, with a yellow and a black pupil, so the black pupil is always appreciated. And you can see that we have a darker brown up here for the top of the figure that kind of runs down here along the back of the face. I would have liked to have seen these spikes here painted out as well again, but that, I guess, is just a bit too much to ask. Once we come back here to the back of the dinosaur, you can see that we have some nice coloration here. It's like an off-white bordering on a tan running along the majority of the spikes and everything here on the back of the Ankylosaurus. And then, of course, the back itself is still that dark brown, and that continues to be the case as you move out here into the tail, out into the club tail. You don't have any color difference for the club tail at all. And then we also don't have the similar coloration with like the tans and everything running out here onto the tail. It just transitions to the brown entirely. Down here on the side, you can see that we have that, again, that reddish coloration for the Ankylosaurus that continues to run the course of the entire underside of the figure until we reach out here into the tail, and then there is the most abrupt transition ever to the dark brown that completely overtakes the rest of the tail out into the club tail, and that is really it. There is like the least amount of paint application on this that they could possibly have given it without making it look like an unpainted figure. We do have, no nail paint whatsoever. I don't see a gloss coat that's specific to the nails either. you could see there was just generally more color to Bumpy. Like we had the coloration of the beak, we had the coloration actually of the spikes. I'm going to use this head right here to point it out, but the spikes had color right there on the head. We also have kind of like the splotchy blue coming down here along the side of Bumpy, and we had alternate coloration out here on the club. Whereas this one, there is just like next to nothing. Like we have the dark brown and the red in the eye, and then this coloration, and that's it. Nothing else. So the coloration of this is definitely very lackluster, which has pretty much been the case for the entire line of these figures. I will say the paint applications have been less than impressive on all 4 of the figures released in this line. 2 of the 4 are fantastic sculpts of new figures, new species entering the line, and although of course the Ankylosaurus and Triceratops sculpts are great, the paint jobs are definitely not very good. We do have the Fax app here again, the DNA code, if I can get it out here. Not so well hidden on this one, but you can see we've got the Jurassic logo back there, and then the code itself here on the front. Not the best way to hide it, but it's definitely not the worst thing in the world. It's not quite as bad, I think, as the paint scheme is. It's sad because the actual colors and tones used really make the figure look fantastic. Like from up above, it looks like one of the most beautiful repaints that we've had until you actually get the figure out and take a look at how lackluster the actual paint scheme is. Definitely a downside as far as the paintwork goes. As far as articulation goes, we do have the articulation in the head. It is on a swivel, so it can completely go around if you'd like. It can also move up and down a little bit, but not too much. It's not as nice as what we saw on Bumpy in that aspect either. We also have the articulation of the legs, forward and back. Same deal for the rear legs, although that is incredibly jerky. I don't really, a little bit of movement in the legs, but not too much. And then the articulation in the tail, and that is also because of the action feature, which I am intrigued to check out on this figure. So we're going to go ahead and push it down. I definitely like the noises, and I like the ability to activate the action feature without any obnoxious buttons. It doesn't work with much power, but it still works, does what it's intended, and has some fun noises, so it's okay, I guess. Definitely love the way that they have begun activating these action features with these newer figures. As far as a length, though, this one is actually going to come up a little bit shorter than your usual Mattel figures because the tail is consistently held off to the side. You're looking at about 9 inches or right around the 22.5, closing in on 23 centimeter range. And then for a height, the highest point would probably be the club tail, about 3 inches or 7.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Ankylosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to the Dominion version of Ankylosaurus, and you can definitely see that it falls right in the same size range. As we already have seen from the earlier view of it next to Bumpy, you can definitely see that it falls right in the same size range as all of the previous Mattel Ankylosaurus figures, except for the fact that the tail now is kind of held off to the side. But other than that, if you have any previous Ankylosaurus figures, you already know the size. So this Roar Strikers Ankylosaurus for the Mattel Jurassic World Dominion line is definitely another okay-ish kind of bad figure. The sculpt is absolutely awesome. When it comes to creating a Jurassic-style Ankylosaurus, picture perfect. Mattel knocked this sculpt out of the park a long time ago. It has remained incredible with every release. But the only thing that's really new about this one is the action feature and paint job. And the paint job is definitely not my favorite thing about this figure. The paint job is really lackluster for the most part. I love the eye paint, though, I will say that, but I think that's really about where the love ends. Well, kind of. I do like the coloration of the dark brown and that kind of almost like a light tannish color that they have up there on the back, but it looks bad because it doesn't extend out onto the tail. If it had run out onto the tail, that whole area would have been fantastic, and also if they would have painted the spikes there on the face, or on the back of the head, I should say, it really would have looked nice, but because they didn't, it makes the whole figure look off, and it just makes the whole figure look lazy when it comes to the paint application. The tones of color used are great. I really love the tones of color used, but the paint application is lackluster as a whole. The action feature, though, does work very nicely, and it also has some really cool Ankylosaurus-style noises. We have some nice articulation in the figure as a whole. So, not your best Ankylosaurus, that's definitely for sure, but I don't know if it's the worst, maybe. It might be. And that's kind of sad because when I first had it up here, I thought maybe it might be one of the best Ankylosaurus, but actually, getting it out, taking a look at how little paint application there is for it, it's definitely a letdown of a figure as a whole. So this Roar Strikers line has kind of been a roller coaster ride for us here because the Scorpiovinator I felt like was great with kind of bad paint. The Triceratops was meh with not so good paint. The Rajasaurus was a great sculpt with not so great paint, and then the Ankylosaurus is another situation where it's like a meh figure. It's not that great. It's not as exciting as the others because like the Roar Striker, Rajasaurus, and Scorpiovinator are brand new sculpts entering the line, but we've had so many Ankylosaurus in the past that this one really isn't anything to be excited about. So if you are interested in picking this up, I will include a link in the description too where you can purchase this on Target's website, or you can purchase it in store at Target as well. So if you are interested, again, make sure you check that out. Pick one up if you would like, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.